I think this conversation is just going to be just that. So you know how we do. Let's go ahead and bring sis in, the one and only Miss Denise Long. Welcome.
Hello, are you there?
Yes, we're here. Um,
Hi, Sonnie.
I have been so looking forward to this conversation, right? So I just kind of ripped you in, but this is what we do with first time guests here on Sunny's Corner. I'll let you introduce yourself. You can tell the people about yourself. You can start talking about a topic or issue anywhere you want to take it. You get the first crack at the conversation, and then we'll go from there. So the floor is yours.
Wow, well, thank you. I am honored to be here, and I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and your audience. So let's see. I have been a Republican affiliated since the Barack Obama campaign, really, I guess, 2006, 2007. And I've been all over the political spectrum, like so many people. I inherited my political orientation from my family, and then as a grown adult professional, bringing in my own money and paying my own taxes, I started to look critically at sort of what it meant politics in America for me, and became a Republican. Joined the Republican Party. By profession, I'm a healthcare professional, 20 plus years. My first career anyway. Worked in education across the spectrum, finishing up a doctorate degree, which, hey, I'm open to folks who want to write that for me, help a sister out. I write for Newsweek. I write for other places, do some speaking interviews and all that kind of stuff about racial equity, about politics and its place in it. Seventh generation American, descendant of slaves, both sides of my family, Mississippi born, country raised, as I like to say. Gosh, what else is there? I'm a mom, I'm a pet mom, I'm a human mom, a mom of a little human who's in college and making mama proud and doing the darn thing. So just excited to be here. I know one of the pieces that you've read that I wrote is the one for Newsweek. And I can't remember, was that the one about immigration or was that the one about divorcing the Democratic Party?
I've read a lot of I've read a lot of your work. The most recent one was the letter to the open letter to the racist Republicans and the
Mm.
Confederacy loving conservatives. But if you want to start with one of the other articles and the content within, you this is your time to speak. This is what this show is about, giving your voice a place. So if you want to jump off on any of them, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't know how great I am at talking about myself for sure, because I've been interested in just having a chat with you. But, when I wrote that piece about racist Republicans and Confederacy loving conservatives, I got to tell you, it had been on my mind for some time. And a recent incident that I had brought it back. A recent incident that I have in real life brought it back to the fore, but I'm going to do Democrats next. Just know that. So, so that piece. So when I became a Republican again, it was during Obama's administration, and I just really sensed that his values and mine didn't align in significant ways that I think it seemed he was ignoring.
That's
Um,
super funny to me. That was super funny to me because that's the exact same time I came in, right?
is that right?
And
Okay.
yeah, that's the exact same time I came in. And the overwhelming urge at that time was, well, you have to vote for the black man. And I was like, I'm new into politics. I'm just learning. And I was like, yo, I know that's one thing I'm not gonna do. Like I'm not gonna
Right.
be like, I'm just gonna see a black face and like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. And it took me 2 years of really like researching and really, really like,
Mm,
okay, where do I stand on like each one of these issues, and then comparing it both to the Democratic policies and the Republican policies. And I was just like, this isn't even a question. Like color can't
mm,
like touch this because this isn't even like an option for me.
yeah. Yeah. And It started out from a values perspective, from the perspective that you're saying, the research perspective. What do I align with, and to what extent? It was easy there. Where it got more difficult was, and I'm throwing it back to the topic of the recent piece that I wrote on my blog at Medium, is how other people in the party showed up around Barack Obama's Blackness and politics. And that's where it became like, I'm here for a values reason. You seem to be here for some extra purposes that I don't really like. Like the memes, the emails, all the talking points. It was really, ooh.
Hey, and then you start checking yourself, because you be like, wait a minute, did I make a mistake? Like,
Right.
was it something in the Republican ideology that I missed? Like, because, and I say this all of the time, I'm like, they do a really good job of convincing you it's not about race. It's not about color. We believe in principles. And you're like, yay, yay, yay. And then you see the memes about Obama, or you see the memes about Michelle. I remember one of the ones during that time period was put out by one of the black faces on the right, Kevin Jackson. And he put out a picture, and it was Michelle Obama and two white women from the back. And they were walking up a flight of stairs. And the caption he put under it was, yeah, is there any choice? I mean, this is just, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, are you kidding?
No.
Like, are you kidding me? And once he did that, you had all of these white Republicans and conservatives that were just like rushing to laugh, rushing to make these jokes about black people. And I'm just like, where did that come in to these ideas I was reading about? Like, where is that put in to where it's judge on the content of someone's character? Where is all of that nonsense that y'all talk about? Where is that in moments like this? And again, we saw it played out with Trayvon Martin. You know what I'm saying? We like, and then you just have to sit there and look and be like, did they really fool me?
Yeah, and so I'm a patient person, but once my patience is tapped, and maybe even a little before, I'm going to keep it straight with you. So I was that person in the meetings who would be like, how is this relevant to bop, bop, bop? Like, and these conversations about good old days and all that kind of stuff. So part of me in that moment, and for a while, the party lost me as an active member. They asked me to be a delegate and all that kind of stuff. And at that point, I was kind of like, I don't know that I represent what you think you represent, because the way you're approaching this topic doesn't actually represent what I think and what I understand Republican values to be. We ain't here for the same reason.
Hey!
And so...
You strumming my pain with your fingers, sis.
Yeah, and it's problematic. And so then with this piece, I was visiting at a meeting, and somebody got up, it's candidate season, we having the primaries and all that kind of stuff. And at this particular area, they hadn't had their primary yet. And somebody got up, this guy recently, I'm talking about this recent thing. And he starts talking about another candidate and asking who's a member of the NAACP in the room. And of course, I throw my hand up because I could tell, we can tell when people about to get ignorant, like it's a sixth sense. So I threw my hand up extra high, and he starts in on this, anti-BLM, anti-CRT, anti-NAACP, because there's been a lot of black babies killed and all this kind of stuff. And while there's a way to speak the truth about things related to abortion, which we can talk about because I recently wrote a piece in Newsweek about that. There's also a way that you speak about things that I can tell that you're swinging at the low-hanging fruit of white anxiety and anti-blackness, because nothing you said in your time at the mic told me what you were going to do for the citizens in the position that you're looking for. And so people in the room know that I write, but he clearly didn't, right? He didn't know. And so,
and then we get looked at like the crazy people for speaking up, because the other black face that came last week, like they agreed with us and they clapped along with us. So obviously it must be something wrong with you if you don't want to sit here and talk about, like, the degradation of black men. Then that's something wrong with you. That's not excuse me. And then when you actually open up to have the conversation, that's when they want to be colorblind. That's when, but I didn't start this conversation. Like, I don't know how many
Mm,
times, like, we've gotten to the place where the white Republican or conservative starts telling me that they're colorblind. And I'm like, I never
mm,
mentioned race. You started this on race. You looked at me being black and you thought that you could say the things that your black faces say, and I was going to clap and applaud you. And instead, you got met with something completely different. And now
mm.
that realization has hit you, now you want to be colorblind. But when you was asking me, did I read Thomas Sowell, you saw color very
Mm.
clearly. But when I start jumping on that neck, now all of a sudden, you don't want to see color. You don't want race involved in the conversation. And it just shows you how disingenuous they are from the open.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, this time, that's not how that went down. So I had
Ooh,
friends in the room because I love building relationships with people, and I tend to build deep connections with people who are willing to engage in the uncomfortable spaces, right? And who are willing to open up and share about things. And so I've built relationships with people who were in that room several, months ago when I first started visiting or whatever. And so what went down for that particular person is he got an op-ed written about him, calling him out, crying his racism. I didn't write it. Another leader in the space wrote it
hey,
and made it and
hey,
made it
hey, Sonny's
clear that
corner.
he was going to write it.
Sonny's corner. When I tell you activate, see, you
Right.
ain't gotta go out and do that crazy. All you gotta do is show up. And when you show
And
up
build
and
relationships.
when you see a problem and you got that relationship, a simple op-ed, a simple couple words, a couple tweets go a long way, and you being able to say, this is the kind of conversation we want to have. This is the way we're going to push forward. Your presence can do that. Okay, I'm sorry. I had to tell my audience
No,
that.
no,
Just to make sure they're
you're
listening.
absolutely no, you're absolutely right, and we are absolutely on the same page there. I didn't anticipate that going down, and I got to tell you, I was upset. And the people who are around me, who I built relationships with, one of them had stepped away when this person spoke, so they didn't hear it. But then he got up to speak again about some other question, and I just decided I need to go ahead and leave the space. So I did leave. I left early, and people noticed, and they heard what he said. And apparently, he's a little bit dysregulated in the first place. But I got plenty of calls the very next day. First of all, I got a call that night from my friend, and I got calls the next day, including people talking at the state level about what to do with candidates like this. So the racism was called out by name. I didn't have to write it. I wouldn't waste my ink naming that person and like amplifying them at all with my own ink. However, by name, people in the space who are leaders of the Republican Party, who call themselves conservative, need to really make it clear the extent to which anti-Blackness and racism is a conservative value, because they are losing out on Americans who are committed to conserving our country and its character when they let people like that get the mic without consequence.
So I look how, like, it's so funny. This is one of the last. This is when I stopped. I'm not a Republican. This is when I stopped messing with Republicans. I was like, look, no. Like, if this is what we're gonna, if this is what you people are gonna do, I'm not gonna be a part of it, right?
Mm,
So, we were having a meeting for a candidate, and I was asked to participate in the meeting. So I said, okay, I'll go. And I'm very cautious about these things because I don't like politicians. So, I went to the meeting, and I'm sitting in the meeting and I'm listening, and it's all of these black faces. Like, the entire meeting is black people, and this
mm,
white candidate comes in and he gives his spiel. Every candidate has one. He gives his spiel. He sits down at the table, and the black people start talking, so they can give their ideas and or whatever. All of them started talking about criminal justice reform
Mm.
issues and working with felons and getting felons out and felons and felons and felons and felons and felons and felons and felons. Girl, I got so tired of hearing the word felon. I shout out loud. I'm like, do you understand you're in a state where felons can't vote? Because at the time, Virginia hadn't passed giving felons back their right to vote, which was passed under a Democratic administration. So at the time, I was like, do you understand you're in a state where you haven't even given felons the right to vote back? But you're sitting up here talking about every way you can spend money and get money to your 501c3 and do all of this so you can help the felons, and you ain't even talking about giving them their rights back.
Right.
And at this
It's
point, they can't even vote for you. So what are you doing? You're not even putting out a message for the people that can actually vote for you. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. And I got so heated at that point. I was like, I told my husband, I said, you have to get me out of here. You have to get me out of here. Because if I stay here, what I am going to say next to these people is not going to be kosher. It's not going to be respectful. Get me out of here. You know what I'm saying? And at that moment, I was like, I'm not messing with them anymore. I got the calls the next day too, and where they're like, no, we understand and blah 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 blah. But I'm like, are you gonna do something different? Well, at this point, we're looking at an election. Okay, you're not gonna do something different. Don't call me until you're ready to do something different.
What do
Period.
they mean we're looking at an election? Was the idea that if you vote to not disenfranchise people who've served their time, that they won't win?
No, what I think this what it is if you understand how their metrics work behind the scenes. So what they're looking for from these people are not even registered votes. What they're looking for is interactions. So the GOP pays them for interactions. Right? So door knocking, canvassing, stuff like that. If you can have this many knocks at this many doors, then you can get this amount of money. Doesn't matter if you're swaying the vote. It doesn't matter if you're changing anything. It doesn't matter what your messaging is. None of that matters. It just matters that you're having the interaction. So you can have the interaction. You can say nothing about your ideology. You can say nothing about a solution. You can say nothing about progress, actually progressing forward. You don't have to do any of that. And you can still get paid. And that's the system that they've set up. So that's why they do things the way that they do. It's not about getting the proper people in a room that can progress a message. It's just about getting some people in a room that can get their numbers met.
I mean, what you've just described to me in so many ways characterizes the current state of national politics, where it's not about actually creating policies that strengthen Americans, which is America, in my perspective, right? It is about moving the ball back and forth. It's about this volley between the extremes of the poles of our politics, and we, the people, are stuck in the middle, trying to choose which brand of crazy we can tolerate dealing with. And I think part of my rally cry, including the 3-point plan to unite America that I wrote on my Medium blog, is designed to really call somebody to leadership, because the adults in the room really do need to stand up at this point.
Republicans keep saying that they're the adults in the room, and I'm like, where? Like, where are you the adults in the room? Like, honestly, where? And it goes the same a lot with the messaging, like you hear coming out of the Republican Party directed towards Black America, right? So, like, if you just vote for something different, then you'll get really like. Have you gotten anything that the Republicans promised you? Like, the Republicans promised you fiscal responsibility. Have you gotten that from them? They promised you a closed border. Have you gotten that from them? They promised you reduce globalization and bringing our jobs back home. And have you gotten any of that from them? Like, so you're telling black people that Democrats don't keep their promises to black people, but Republicans don't keep their promises to you either. So, I mean,
Hmm.
both parties need to be looked at and examined and actually reformed by the American people.
I can say I can agree with the Reformation call to action for sure. And part of it again, how do we get to this place where a country, a politic of and by the people becomes anything but that? I was listening to something earlier today, and the person who was speaking cited some research about the fact that the majority of what comes out of national politics does not reflect, in large measure, I think it's like 60 something percent of what comes out does not reflect the druthers, preferences, and needs of the American people.
Nope.
Have we gotten to a point in politics where this is about infighting more than it is? And I'm going to say this, and I trust that people understand what I mean when I say this, but have we gotten to this point where it's not about taking care of home anymore? And home is all of us. That it's about this fight. The fight is politics now versus producing things that undergirds and secures our nation and the prosperity of American citizens.
Sadly, I will tell you, I've had that conversation with a lot of white Republicans, and they will straight up tell you, like, no, like, I want to fight the Democrats. I don't care about having a discussion with Black America. The Democrats did this to me. The Democrats said this about me. The Democrats talk about me like this. So I don't care about having a conversation with Black America. The only thing I care about is fighting with the Democrats. And the Democrats are like, good, fight with us, because the more you fight with us, the more racist and bigoted we can make you look to everybody because of how you fight. You're not fighting for people. You're fighting against us. And that means you aren't watching your mouth. That means you aren't being respectful. That means you aren't judging by character. That means you aren't focusing on solutions. You aren't doing any of that because all of that requires a level of thinking that you are not capable of. The level you're capable of is fighting Democrats over, like you said, the low-hanging fruit. And that's all they are really capable of. And so now you have, again, these people that are supposed to be the adults in the room, like, you've lost the culture, you lost the classroom, you've lost higher education, you lost the border, you lost American institutions. What is it going to take for you to realize you keep thinking you're fighting the Democrats and they have beat you in like every single arena you think you're winning something in? It's not even, you're not even winning. You want to
Right.
fight, but you're not even winning.
Yeah, wow, you said a lot there. It is the way you fight because it's the way that you've been programmed to think. So it's not just the messaging issue, but there's this theory of change, this theory of understanding, how you understand the world that seeps out, sometimes pours out of your mouth when you speak. So there's some ways that their talking points are unevolved. And the other thing I will say here is it's not just that they're not having conversations with Black America. I see plenty of, even though white Americans broadly are doing better than Black America, there are plenty of Americans across the racial spectrum that are being left behind in the bickering that's happening in our national politics. And what I always say is if you can't figure out how to take care of the folks and undergird the economic, social stability of the folks in the urban area in your state, as well as the folks in the country, in the rural area, you are not fit for leadership, for me. I mean, part of it is a competence thing in general. And if competence is that you stick it to the Democrats or you stick it to the Republicans, then we have a really, really low bar.
And I totally agree with you. The way we stated here on Sonny's Corner is conservatism equally applied. And anything, any policy, any idea, any principle that I specifically state towards the Black community, I could use that exact same principle towards the white community, towards the Hispanic community, towards the Somali community, towards the Haitian community. Like, nobody gets left out when it's based on principle. My thing is, for a long time, Black people, and especially within the Republican Party, we get left out if it's
Mm.
just based on principle. And that's why I continue to make sure I point that out. Can you hold over? We need to take a quick break. Can you stay for a little bit?
Okay.
Because
Yeah,
I want to
absolutely.
talk to you about your plan. We're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna come back and we're gonna have more fire conversation with Denise Long.